If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
You know what time it is. It's time to start the show. Thank you as always, Austin Angelo. I'm Bradley Clarke, and welcome to The Game Show, the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows. Now on The Game Show, I've dedicated a number of episodes to reality television, especially when Survivor and The Amazing Race were hot topics. However, today, I'm welcoming a new reality competition show to the Game Show family. Now, this reality show has been taking America by storm since 2002, is oftentimes the definition of a tear-jerking television show, and on the most recent season, gave us a season finale that had many fans picking their jaws up from the ground. If you haven't guessed the program I'm referring to yet, maybe this song will help. The song is Seal's Kiss from a Rose, and the show is The Bachelor. Yes, this is the game show's first ever episode devoted to ABC's hit dating series The Bachelor, and I was just as shocked as all of Bachelor Nation when at the end of season 22 this past March, Bachelor Arie chose Becca to be his bride, but then called off the engagement to try to reconcile his relationship with the woman he sent home before his proposal, Lauren. Yeah, I know. I think that qualifies as the definition of a shocking turn of events. Now, in today's day and age with social media, many moments from television are extensively talked about and tweeted about. But Arie dumping Becca to go back to Lauren was certainly one of the most covered television moments that I have ever witnessed in my lifetime. So, if everyone else is talking about it, as someone whose goal is to cover the world of competition shows, I feel it's my duty to discuss it as well. And I found the perfect person to join in on the conversation. She's a film, culture, and celebrity staff writer for the Los Angeles Times, and more importantly, the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Bachelor Nation, Inside the World of America's Favorite Guilty Pleasure. I'm so happy she accepted my guest request. It's Amy Kaufman. Amy, welcome to the game show.
Thank you so much.
Did you like that little pun I put in there, that you accepted my guest request?
Yes, I accept your final rose as well, if you have one.
You're so kind. Well, I'm so happy to talk with you about The Bachelor and your book. And later on, I know you're a huge super fan of The Bachelor. I have a surprise for you. Later on, we're going to play a game all about The Bachelor. Are you excited?
You're going to test my knowledge.
But you're going to do great. So I want to get right into it, talking about this book, Bachelor Nation. What was your motivation for writing a book all about the Bachelor series?
Well, I'm just a huge fan of the show. I've been watching it for, at least a decade. And Unreal, that show came out on Lifetime. That was a fictional version created by a former Bachelor producer. And it seemed so over the top and so outlandish. And I was like, is that really what goes on behind the show and how it works? And, I'm a journalist, so I started asking questions. And when I found that people were willing to talk to me, I thought there might be a book there.
So were you actually surprised that a lot of people did come to you and talk about this? Because Bachelor Nation is such a super fan-driven community. So were you happy to see that Bachelor Nation was coming to you and talking to you about the show?
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of people who've been on it and a variety of experiences, of course. And so when people were willing to open up, I was, of course, thrilled. And just as a fan, I wanted to know how it worked.
When did you start getting hooked by this show? The show came out in 2002. Were you from the get-go, season one, I'm in on this show?
No, it really only hooked me in after Jason Mesnick's season. That's the guy who proposed to someone during the finale and then changed his mind and proposed to his runner-up in the after show, in the after the final rose, because I was like, wow, this is so dramatic. How can something this insane unfold on live television? And then I was a convert.
I came here to find... in my whole life, find somebody like Melissa. And since this all ended, things have been different. Over the last few weeks, I haven't been able to stop thinking about Molly.
So you're telling me that you're still in love with Molly?
Yeah,
Are you going to end this tonight?
I have to.
Let's bring her out.
I came here to find somebody to spend the rest of my life with, and we're not right for each other.
You put a ring on Melissa's finger, but you don't want to fight to see if that can work. Because you're having doubts over someone else who you already said goodbye to. I wish more than anything that last day you would have just let me go instead of doing this to me. I'm so mad at you.
I would do anything if I could give that for you.
Don't call me. And don't text me anymore. Leave me alone, please.
You know Molly's here tonight. Let's bring out Molly.
Hi.
Hi.
Melissa was out here earlier, and I ended things with her because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you.
This is something I dreamt of, but never expected to hear.
So where do we go from here?
You know, I came here for one reason. I came here to find somebody to spend the rest of my life with, without a doubt. You are that right person.
I'm actually a fairly recent addition to Bachelor Nation. I started watching not too long ago in Nick's season, but the reason why I tuned in was because I was watching the new Celebrity Apprentice with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The premieres were the same day, so during the commercials of that, I'd flip over to The Bachelor because, you know, I don't want to watch the commercials. I'll rather watch something that's on. So I switched over, so then that got me hooked. So I ended up watching that season regularly. And then I watched Rachel's Bachelorette season, you know, on and off. And then last season with Arie, there was so much drama with that. So, of course, I had to watch that. So that's how I got involved with the show. I feel like that's kind of how a lot of people get involved with reality TV. Like, they're just switching the channel and it hooks you in. Or a friend of a friend told you and they'll say, oh, okay, I'll watch one episode. And then one episode leads to the entire season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, people are like, how could you watch that? And I think there's a lot of judgment about reality television in general, but specifically The Bachelor. And then how many times have you heard exactly what you just described? Someone catches 15 minutes of it, and then 2 hours later, they're still sitting in front of the television.
Right, and they're really looking forward to the next episode.
Right.
These networks, they know how to pull your heartstrings because they'll put for the coming up on the next episode, they'll put dramatic moments. They'll make you want to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the finale of this season with Arie was 5 hours, like over 2 nights. So, I mean, they stop at nothing, these people.
And it was interesting, though, because they labeled the final episode. And then all of a sudden, Chris Harrison goes, oh, by the way, we were given another night, so tune in tomorrow.
I know. It's like, clear your schedule. And it's crazy what Bachelor Nation will do. Because I think The Bachelor is one of the few remaining sort of television events left out there. And so people get really excited. They want to watch with their friends. They want to live tweet. It's a little bit different than shows you can DVR.
I watch a lot of the reality competition shows, Survivor, Amazing Race. I watch all of those. And what's so interesting about reality TV and what's so captivating to me is that if you don't watch the episode right then and there, because of social media nowadays, it's like you can't go on any of that stuff because there'll be something, whether it's a clip, whether it's just someone saying, oh my God, did you see who got eliminated? It really is one of those, as you said, television events. I think that's great, you know, nowadays where everything can be DVR'd and you can watch them weeks later. But to know that if you're a true fan and you don't want spoilers, you have to watch then and there. As a television fan in general, that's captivating to me.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's like the spoiler thing, though. It's like not only do you have to watch that very night, but then you can't even go online, I feel like, or you will be spoiled by, you know, the stuff Reality Steve puts out into the universe that gets picked up by every single outlet. So I actually am personally frustrated with that because it's like unavoidable to get through an entire season and not be spoiled anymore.
Exactly. So my next question in regards to your book is, what behind-the-scenes info should Bachelor Nation expect to read about in your book, Bachelor Nation?
There is a lot of it. You know, you'll learn not only how the show works, but sort of how the producers get the juicy sound bites and the clips that they need to keep us hooked in and watching. And some of those practices, honestly, were a little bit more disturbing than I had anticipated.
More disturbing than what you might expect from a reality television dating show? Because I would think there is some trickery when it comes to, as you said, getting the television-worthy sound bites or the sob story moments. But if it's more disturbing than that, I can't wait to read about them.
Listen, I think, you assume there's stuff with game shows and that none of it's completely organic, but just sort of learning about the bubble and the intense environment of The Bachelor, I thought at least they had a little bit more free will, so I was surprised to learn how controlled it is.
And speaking of being surprised, I certainly felt that emotion when I read in the introduction of your book that you were actually banned from ABC. Can you talk about that situation?
Yeah. So basically, I was recapping the show for the LA Times, and as a result of that, you get to go to events and interview contestants. The show even came to my house to, crash a viewing party once. So Chris Harrison has been at my house, which is crazy. And then one day, I just stopped getting the invitations, and so obviously I was perplexed by that, and we reached out to see what was going on, and the publicity team told my editor that I was too negative in my coverage, and so I would no longer be invited to events, and that was the end. I was kicked out of Bachelor Nation.
Did you ever try to lift the ban?
I think we inquired as to what was going on, but they weren't particularly cooperative. We were just cool, we're not going to cover The Bachelor anymore, and that's what we did for a while. Now we do cover it again, though.
I find it very interesting that you got banned because ABC felt you were too negative. Because obviously the network doesn't want to have any bad comments attached to their show, but reality television, by design, evokes an opinion out of everyone who watches. So, as a journalist who covers reality television, especially a competition dating show, don't you think your opinion should be included in your Bachelor recaps, even if it could be of a somewhat negative connotation?
Definitely recapping a show is a different exercise than reporting on it because you're supposed to include your opinion. It's a different medium. So yeah, my opinion was in those recaps, and maybe they didn't like that. But at the same time, I think The Bachelor is one of those shows that people are very opinionated about, and there are so many podcasts, there are so many recaps out there, and people have very strong feelings about the franchise. I wasn't the only one, so it was kind of odd to me that I was singled out.
How much opinion is in the book?
Actually, I tried to keep it fairly neutral. I inject my opinion here and there, but in terms of reporting people's experiences, that's pretty straightforward.
You mentioned podcasts, and what I've found interesting over the last few years is that there are so many reality show podcasts and so many people offering recaps of episodes and seasons of so many reality competition shows. And I personally have my favorites that I like to check out just to see if someone else's opinion is the same as mine. But it's weird that now, especially for The Bachelor, that it's not just about watching the show every week for many of the viewers, but part of being a fan is viewing the podcasts and reading the blogs that go along with each episode.
Yeah, I know. It's there's this whole culture that's popped up around the show, which I think sometimes is almost bigger than the viewership itself. It's the conversation around it is so expansive. But for me as a fan, that definitely makes it more fun to engage. It's I love hearing contestants after they've been voted off go on a podcast or hear the producer of the show talk about that season or whatever. There's so many different guests and so many podcasts in Bachelor Nation that if you want to go deep, you can really be a very knowledgeable fan.
So your book is called Inside the World of America's Favorite Guilty Pleasure. Now, personally, I think Bachelor is one of my guilty pleasures. I'm not afraid to say it. I will say it right here on the air. It is a guilty pleasure of mine. Why do you think America is so obsessed with this show?
I think just fundamentally the answer is pretty simple. It's a show about love and relationships, and that's something we can all relate to in a way that we can't with Top Chef, where we're not all gourmet chefs, or Survivor, we don't all know how to build a fire or something. We all have opinions about what it's like to court someone, to fall in love, what we would say in those situations, and even though there are helicopters and rose petals and sort of these over-the-top scenarios, fundamentally, it's something we can all sort of understand.
As a superfan, do you like how they go over the top, or would you rather see it more simplistic because that's what the real world of dating is?
I definitely would like to see more, quote-unquote, normal-looking people on the show, people who are more reflective of the viewership and more diverse in body type and ethnicity and sexual orientation. But in terms of the dates and stuff, I think sort of the high stakes are what make it The Bachelor. I think they actually went to McDonald's as a paid sponsorship on one date and had them go behind the counter and make burgers. So, I don't know. They actually do kind of switch it up. They go from helicopters to McDonald's.
I don't remember the McDonald's date, but I do remember from a couple of years ago there was a McDonald's commercial that featured a few of the former Bachelors like Ben Higgins and Chris Soules.
Made a decision?
You gotta make a decision at some point, man.
Be sure to choose wisely.
She did.
She likes breakfast.
And he likes lunch.
Have you made a decision?
Breakfast for lunch.
Save that, Rose. You'll need it later.
However, if there was in fact a McDonald's date, and you know better than I do, I'd definitely love to see more of them because you wouldn't expect a date like that. Now that the show's been on for so long, you expect helicopter rides on the beach and going to places like Peru where they just went. But imagine if the producers say, this week, guys, the group date is going to be at a Burger King in Montana.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting, but I don't know if, that's what Bachelor fans expect necessarily. Listen, I'm so deep in, I would probably watch anything, so take us to Burger King.
Whatever they put on the screen, I'm there.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I'm pretty involved.
Are you surprised that the fan base is still there, even though a lot of the couples don't actually work out?
You know, initially I thought that was weird, that we would all tune in when the fairy tale that we were promised was not actually working out. But no, because there's still that moment at the end where you think it might. And all you need is that shred of hope, I think. And there's just enough couples that have worked out that it's not like a total sham. So I think we all want to believe, even if the odds are very slim.
So you don't mind that many of the couples don't actually work out in the long run?
I don't love it. I mean, I'm very cynical when it gets to the end of the season. I'm like, well, they have 6 months or whatever. But even that is kind of a fun enterprise, like seeing how people navigate the post-show life. If they go on Dancing with the Stars, do they face issues because of the press? Do they move to LA or New York, or do they live somewhere off the grid? That's almost a whole other fun, non-televised show to watch unfold.
Right, because it's so interesting because they always say, oh, I can't wait to start our lives together post-show. But meanwhile, the day after the show, they're on all the morning shows. They're getting interviewed so many times. There's so much recap coverage. And until they tie the knot, and even that could be a televised wedding, until they tie the knot and kind of get out of the limelight, that could be 2 years. So post-show could be longer than what the viewers are seeing of the show or how long the show actually takes place.
Yes, it's not a normal engaged couple. There are press opportunities, and you can get paid to promote things on Instagram. But I think the couples who've been successful tend to be ones who sort of shied away from those opportunities and moved to places outside of New York or LA and focus on their relationships. And I hate when they say, we just want to go to Target, we just want to go to the movies. It's like, okay, well, actually do that then. Yeah, I agree with you. Don't go out to a paparazzi restaurant.
Exactly. So now I want to talk about my favorite sections of your book, Bachelor Nation, and those are the Why I'm a Fan sections, in which you interviewed celebrities who are actual fans of the Bachelor series. So talk a little bit about some of the celebrities you interviewed for the Why I'm a Fan sections.
So, yeah, I mean, I had seen so many celebrities on late night shows saying, oh, I love The Bachelor, it's my guilty pleasure, and so I was like, well, it's their guilty pleasure too. Why don't I see if some of these guys will talk to me for the book? And so some of my favorite people to talk to were Amy Schumer, Diablo Cody, Jason Ritter, all sharing opinions that I think a lot of people will relate to. I mean, of course, these are just other people and fans of the show. And Amy Schumer in particular was saying, I have very mixed feelings watching this as a feminist, and yet it's the one thing I look forward to most every Monday. It's really messed up, and I think a lot of women and even men feel that way too.
Was there one celebrity that you were surprised to find out they were a Bachelor superfan? The one that I was like, wow, he watches the show? Donnie Wahlberg.
I know, and he's really intense. He said that he would literally shut down the production of that show. He's on Blue Bloods and be like, I got to get home, you guys. It's Monday. We have to go watch The Bachelor. And he watches it with his wife, Jenny McCarthy, hardcore.
Donnie Wahlberg watching The Bachelor. That is a sight to see.
I know. He's really into it, I'm telling you.
Did you get to talk with each of the celebrities for a good amount of time about The Bachelor? Because reality television conversations, at least from my experiences, can go on for a long time, especially if both people involved are interested in a specific episode or whatever they're talking about related to the show.
Yeah, Paul Scheer is a comedian. I talked to him for an hour and a half about The Bachelor. He could have gone on forever. These people get really into it in the same way I do, and I think it's just indicative of how many thoughts we have about this show. It's very easy to dismiss the show as I just plop on the couch, it's mindless, it's entertainment. But when you ask someone what it really represents to them and what they think it's saying about society, people can go on at length.
Did you ask any of the celebrities if they would want to be the Bachelor or Bachelorette or just a contestant if given the opportunity?
Yeah, most people said no, except they did ask Amy Schumer if she would be the Bachelorette, and she said she did consider it for a split second because she thought it would be cool to be a different kind of role model to women and be laying by the pool in the mansion, just I have cellulite, deal with it, guys, we all deserve love. But then she was like, no way.
In the book, you write about how you will oftentimes fantasize about being the Bachelorette yourself. But I wonder, as you watch The Bachelorette season after season, or even as you were learning about the show as you were writing your book, do you still have the same fantasies about being the Bachelorette, or have they slowly faded away?
While I was writing the book, I thought, oh, if only I could be on it, blah, 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 blah. Now I definitely don't feel that way learning as much as I've learned about the show. Also, I would never get cast on it. But everyone who's watching it in some way fantasizes about what it would be like to have 25 women or men interested in you. Or would you be the chosen person? And sort of how would people respond to you? I think that's just the natural idea of the show, is sort of this built-in fantasy. So yeah, I mean, I'll admit that it's like a tempting idea, but the reality of what it takes to go through that process is not something I'm interested in.
Was there one aspect of the show in particular that you learned about, which was the one that made you say to yourself, I would definitely not want to be the Bachelorette?
Just the idea of being in these interviews where, you know, you're one-on-one for hours and they know everything that makes you tick and, you know, your insecurities and what you're scared of. And I just feel like because of the editing and because of the unique environment where you have no outside stimulation, I wouldn't trust myself to not say something I later regretted or get too emotional. You know, I just don't think that you can be represented as you truly are.
It is tough because the cameras are on you so many hours of the day, and especially with these moments where you're going through a potential relationship and all the effects and sorrows that might come with it. And to get an emotional breakup out of you on television, that's tough. And one of the things that I always question about the show is The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. They signed up for this knowing that they have to eliminate all these people, but still they regret a lot of the times eliminating people. So that's the fascinating part for me. One of the fascinating parts about the show is that even though you signed up to eliminate people, they still have a hard time eliminating people.
Yeah, I mean, well, because no one knows what that's going to feel like. I'm sure it doesn't feel good to have to reject someone. I mean, it's like fundamentally kind of mean, right? It's saying like, I don't like you as much as someone else. And ultimately the prize makes that worth it, I guess. But I'm sure it's not a fun process to go through and much harder than people anticipate.
So which of the Bachelors and the Bachelorettes did you interview for the book?
I interviewed a lot. In the book, there's about 60 interviews. So some of the ones people might remember, let me think. Sean Lowe, favorite Bachelor. Nick Vial, who you said you started with. Desiree. Meredith, who's an old Bachelorette. And then, you know, everyone's favorite villains. And there'll be someone everyone recognizes if you've been a fan of the show for a long time.
We don't know how long this show is going to go on. Do you plan maybe a few years later, if the show goes on, to update this book?
I was thinking about that because the paperback comes out in a year, you know, and the news goes so quickly. So everyone was saying, like, were you upset you couldn't include Arie's season in the book? It's like, well, the book came out the same day as Arie's season. How would that have been possible? But you could go on forever. This news constantly evolves. So I don't know. We'll see. I think I could add a little update for the paperback, but I don't know about a sequel yet.
Well, this brings up another point. The Bachelor series has been on television since 2002. How much longer do you think the show can last?
I think it has at least another 5 years in it, I would say. But just when I count them out, they find a way to entice me. I mean, this season, Arie was a really lackluster Bachelor. Ratings were lower than they'd ever been, down to like 5 million. And then at the end of the season, they did this crazy dramatic promise, and, you know, we jumped back up to almost 8 million. So I think they will kind of like stop at nothing to get viewers to tune back in, and they always figure out a way to ramp up the drama.
And what's interesting is that Arie was on the show quite a bit of time ago. You know, a lot of the times they pick people from the previous season or at least previous couple seasons, but he was on quite some time ago. So I was actually surprised that they went with him.
Yeah, I think so was everyone in Bachelor Nation. It felt like a desperation move for sure.
Well, I read that he was considered a couple times and the timing didn't work out, he said, but now the timing did work out. And he's older than the typical Bachelor, and a lot of the women were younger, like Becca was 22. So were you surprised about the age gap between Arie and the Bachelorettes this season?
I don't know. I mean, he did actually have a fair number of women who were closer to his age who just did not keep them around. I think that says more about Arie than casting production, but should a 22-year-old be with a 36-year-old? Who's to say? There's a lot of people with huge age gaps in their relationship. As long as they gave people an option and variety, I think it's fine. If it was all 22-year-olds, I would think it would have raised more eyebrows.
Now, I've always been curious about behind-the-scenes information regarding reality television shows, but out of all the questions I've always wanted answered related to the Bachelor series, I've always wanted to know if the Bachelor or Bachelorette actually chooses who goes on what date. Because I'm fairly confident in saying that they don't choose who gets to go on what date each week. So were you able to find out that information while writing your book?
Yeah, no, they don't. After the first night, the Bachelor or Bachelorette will say, here's who I think I'm interested in, who I'd like to be on my first date. And then the producers make suggestions of who should stick around, who would be great on a group date or an individual one-on-one. And the producers, in terms of like who you go on the dates with, I think they're more in control of that. But in terms of who you keep around, while they will make suggestions, and in the beginning you probably don't care if you keep the villain around a little bit longer because they're not going to make it all the way anyway. In the end, when it gets to like the final four, those are really all people that you feel strongly about and not ones who producers have sort of urged you to keep.
Right, because speaking of the villain, what it made me think was Corinne from Nick's season, and she got to the final four and then she got eliminated then, but it seems like a lot of people were like, oh, she's the villain. Of course, she's going to be kept for a while. And then on the 2-on-1 date with Taylor, of course, oh, look at that. They got put together. They're the two people that are clashing. Wonder how that got selected.
Yeah, obviously. The 2-on-1 is always the two people who don't get along. That's a pretty, formulaic one. I mean, if there are two men or two women in the house who hate each other, you can guarantee they're going on the 2-on-1.
Right. Now, do you think that's because they want them to clash, or do you think, well, one of them is going to have to go, so might as well put them on the same date together?
No, because they want them to clash.
Oh, yeah. So we briefly mentioned it before, but now I want to talk more in depth about the previous season of The Bachelor with Arie and the now famous on-camera breakup. When you watched the finale and saw Arie dump Becca, what was your initial reaction?
Well, first of all, I had been spoiled, even though I didn't want to be, because it was all over Twitter and every news outlet and in the supermarket on the magazine cover. So I knew it was coming, which took some of the, out of it. But I was surprised that she didn't flip out on camera and say, why would you film this? And I think that shows you how much these people get in your mind and how much you feel like you owe them something. You signed up for this. They get to film every nitty-gritty detail, even if it's post-filming. And then she turned around and agreed to be the Bachelorette. So clearly she didn't feel like it was too far or too exploitative.
Yeah, do you think that it was maybe too soon for Becca to say, I'm going to do the Bachelorette?
In terms of getting over him, no. Once someone does you that dirty, I think it's pretty cut and dry. You're not pining over them. You're well, if that's the kind of person he is, right? I mean, I don't know.
That's true. And I was thinking, I'm sure when Arie told the producers what he was going to do and then seeing the footage unfold, I'm sure in the back of their minds, they were like, well, we can ask her to be the Bachelorette. Wouldn't that be an interesting end of this story?
Yeah, come on. The second that he said he's having a change of heart, they were like, ding, ding, ding. I mean, come on. It's an obvious go-to Bachelorette.
Chris Harrison at the finale kept saying, this is the first time ever in reality TV history that we are going to show you unedited footage from the multiple cameras that were used. Do you think that was a good decision? Because some people that said, oh, yes, we loved it. And some people were like, how can they do that to Becca and show this unedited footage of this massive breakup?
No, I think that backfired. They thought, oh, we're really going to be transparent. We're going to show this raw and unedited. And by the way, them promoting that this was the first time they've ever done that shows you just how edited the show is. But then people thought it was too much. It was 20 minutes of just super exploitative footage filled with awkward silences and pauses. And you could have showed some of that and not all of it. I thought it was a step too far. But again, Becca didn't. So at the end of the day, I guess that's what matters.
Right, and Chris Harrison kept saying, but there's more, and they took 2 commercial breaks within the entire footage.
I know. It was crazy. When you watch it back, you're like, you are milking this for every single second.
And to think that the producers actually sat down and discussed how they were going to show the viewers this breakup. I mean, the amount of thought that probably went into deciding whether to use the split screen, or when they were going to reveal who the next Bachelorette is, or just the decisions on whether to air the footage or not, or to edit it or not. It's crazy how much production must go into making The Bachelor, especially when there's a situation that has never happened before in the show's history.
I know. It's nuts. It is crazy. I agree with you.
Now, this was big news. Everyone was covering it on every entertainment source, magazines, TV, all that. As someone who writes for entertainment news for the Los Angeles Times, did this top the Bachelor in Paradise scandal from last August?
I don't think so. The Bachelor in Paradise scandal was far more serious, far more unprecedented, much more mysterious in a way. We didn't know what had happened, and there was more reporting to be done, so people had a lot more questions and kept coming back to find out the answers. And so this was yes, what was crazy for one night, then she became the Bachelorette, and it was kind of okay, let's move on.
And on to the next season.
Yep, exactly.
So what's your prediction for Arie and Lauren? Do you think they're going to work out?
In a way, I kind of feel like they will, because they've been through so much adversity that I think that bonds you in a different way than maybe if you hadn't, and sort of you two against the world. But he obviously doesn't have a good track record, so I don't know. If it was up to her, probably I feel like they would work out, but I don't trust him necessarily.
Well, that's interesting what you said about he doesn't have a track record, because a lot of the previous Bachelors didn't have a good track record. You had Nick, who was on the show 3 times prior.
But that was him being rejected, not him rejecting people.
That is true.
Yeah.
But do you think that people who've been on this show so many times, do you think they say to themselves, okay, this is enough. This is the last time I'm doing this. I think I should do it the normal way?
No, because I remember interviewing Nick for the book a couple of years ago, and he was like, I'm done with The Bachelor. This was pre-Paradise and him becoming The Bachelor. It's like you think you're done, and then the shiny, bright opportunity presents itself from the producers, and people find it too difficult to turn down, I think.
Well, when you get all these lavish trips, all the champagne you could ever drink in your life, and your name and face is on billboards and commercials and magazine covers, wonder why they say yes.
Yeah, although for The Bachelor and Bachelorette, I understand the allure more, but the travel and stuff, it's not like you're like roaming the streets of these exotic locations. Like you're holed up in a hotel room. You can't even leave. So people think they're getting these cool travels and exotic trips, and it's really not the case.
And even the mansion life on the show, as I've read, isn't what it looks like. I know the first meet and greet will start late at night and it won't end until the early hours of the morning, so it must be exhausting.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it's like they don't get a lot of sleep in the mansion. They're sleeping in bunk beds. They keep the lights on the whole night for production. There's like one bathroom, luggage spread all over the floor. It's not luxurious accommodations as everyone imagines.
I can only imagine how much the show's champagne cost is.
I know, seriously, right? Probably a lot. And the Rose budget, too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Amy, we've come to my favorite portion of the game show. It's time for the game of the day.
Game of the day.
And Amy, just for you, I've created a Bachelor-themed game. It is time to play Last Woman Standing. Last Women Standing. And here's how the game is played. I'll give you the names of 2 women who were finalists on a past season of The Bachelor. Or in other words, the last 2 girls hoping to be proposed to by a previous Bachelor. Once I give you the 2 names, all you have to do is tell me which previous Bachelor the ladies were swooning over. If you can identify the handsome devil just by the names of the last woman standing alone, you'll score 2 points. However, if after I say the names of the women, you can't quite put a rose on who their Bachelor was, I'll give you 3 Bachelor choices, one of which is the correct Prince Charming. However, naming the correct Bachelor using the 3 Bachelor choices will only score you 1 point. You'll face up to 8 pairs of last woman standing, and Amy, if you can accumulate 5 points or more, you'll be given a radio rose as the winner of this game. Those are all the rules of the game. So, Amy, are you ready to play?
Yeah.
Then let's play Last Woman Standing. And I think the perfect song to play in the background of a game called Last Woman Standing is Shaka Khan's hit, I'm Every Woman. All right, Shaka's playing in the background. So, Amy, here come your first pair of women. Jessica Bolin and Tara Huckabee.
Wait. So you're saying these are the 2 finalists?
Yes.
Jessica? And what was the other one?
Tara Huckabee.
Jesse Palmer?
That is correct. Jesse Palmer. Very good.
Okay, good. That seemed so random that...
Very good. That's 2 points. And look at that. You only need 5, so you're already 2 points down. Here comes your next 2 names. You ready?
Yep.
Jenny Croft and Deanna Pappas.
Oh, Deanna was Brad Womack.
That is correct. Very good. That's another 2 points. You're up to 4.
Okay.
And this is your 3rd name, so you got plenty of different options to get to 5. Here comes your 3rd list of last woman standing. Tessa Horst and Bevan Nicole Powers.
Let's do it multiple choice.
Very smart option because you only need 1 point. Your Bachelor choices are Matt Grant, Andrew Baldwin, or Bob Guinea.
It's definitely not Bob. Andy Baldwin?
Andy Baldwin is correct. You got it just like
Woo!
that. Amy, you have won Last Woman Standing.
I'm I'm a true Bachelor fan.
You are
a true... Should I be ashamed of this?
No. Anyone who writes a book about The Bachelor or watches The Bachelor should not be ashamed that they are a true Bachelor fan.
That's true. That's true.
This is the first playing of Last Woman Standing, but if I ever play it again, this is a playing that will be hard to match. So you've won your Radio Rose, Amy. Great job.
Thank you so much. I hope you will have me again to play this very difficult game.
Well, it could have been difficult if you weren't as big of a super fan as you are, but when I have a all-game edition, that's what I'm planning on doing sometime in the future, I'll save these cards and I'll invite you back on so we can play the remaining 5 Last Woman Standing pairs of names.
Okay, sounds fun.
Sounds like a plan. Well, congratulations again, Amy, for winning the game with only 3 Last Woman Standing pairs. I am very impressed. And that was the game of the day, Last Women Standing. Last Women Standing. Well, Amy, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. Once again, tell everyone the name of your book.
It is Bachelor Nation, Inside the World of America's Favorite Guilty Pleasure, and I will tweet all about it from my account at Amy K in LA.
Perfect. Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining me on the game show, and I look forward to having you back on to play more of Last Woman Standing.
Okay, thanks, Bradley. Talk to you later.
All right, all the best with the book.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the game show. My thanks once again to Los Angeles Times staff writer and author of the book Bachelor Nation, Inside the World of America's Favorite Guilty Pleasure, Amy Kaufman, for being my guest today. And before I officially sign off, I want to give a huge congratulations to the host of The Bachelor, Chris Harrison, because he was nominated for a 2018 Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Game Show Host as the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Plus, Millionaire was also nominated for Outstanding Game Show. Chris, I want to let you know that I was pulling for you to win the Daytime Emmy this year for Outstanding Game Show Host, not only because you've done a fantastic job this year as host of Millionaire, but because you're the only 2018 Outstanding Game Show Host nominee I've had as a guest on the game show. So I feel partially responsible for your Daytime Emmy nomination. Anyway, your hosting skills speak for themselves, so congrats, Chris, on the accomplishment. And just like the title of a game show you once hosted, you deserve it. Now, if you want to listen to my Who Wants to Be a Millionaire themed episode of the game show featuring Chris Harrison as my guest, or if you want to check out all of my previous episodes of the game show, log on to www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/the game show. That's www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/the game show. Plus, don't forget to like The Game Show Starring Bradley Clarke on Facebook and follow The Game Show Starring Bradley Clarke on Twitter using the handle @TheGameShowBC and #TheGameShow. But of course, be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode of the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows, The Game Show. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and will you accept my Radio Rose? Bye for now. The Bachelor episode clip is courtesy of the ABC Television Network.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke and was recorded at the WRHU studios. This is Austin Angelo speaking.
The Game Show is a Bradley Clarke production. Get your game on.